the business. Because when you see a restaurant generating millions in sales, the question shouldn't simply be, how much money does it make? The better question is, how much capital does it take to generate those sales? And how much of that revenue ultimately becomes a return for the owner? That's the question investors ask. And it's the question every entrepreneur should learn to ask. Imagine you have two choices. The first is McDonald's. You pay a huge amount of money for an established brand, a proven system, customer recognition, and a business model that has already been tested across thousands of locations. The second option is an independent restaurant. You could potentially start with far less capital. You control the brand, you control the menu, you control the business, but you also take on much more uncertainty. Nobody is handing you millions of customers because they recognize your logo. Nobody is giving you a decades-old operating system. You have to build everything yourself. So the decision isn't simply McDonald's or no McDonald's. It's a question of what you're willing to pay for certainty, and that's where the numbers become important. A famous brand doesn't automatically make a business a good investment. A business can generate millions in revenue and still produce an unattractive return if the capital required to generate that revenue is too high. And the opposite can also be true. A smaller business with lower revenue can potentially produce an attractive return if it requires much less capital to operate. That's why revenue alone doesn't tell you whether a business is worth owning. Return on capital does, and this is the lesson McDonald's gives us. You don't need $2 million to learn how a $2 million business works. You don't need to own a franchise to understand the economics behind one. And you definitely don't need to be able to afford McDonald's today to use the same questions when you're evaluating a business you actually can afford. How much does it cost to get started? How much does it cost to keep operating? How much revenue does the business generate? How much of that revenue becomes profit? How much capital is tied up? And finally, is the return worth the risk? That's the real business verdict. McDonald's may offer something incredibly valuable, a proven brand, a proven system, and enormous customer recognition. But those advantages don't make the financial math disappear. The investment is still massive, the ongoing costs are still real, and the revenue number, impressive as it is still only revenue. So if you had the capital, would you pay millions for the McDonald's system? Or would you take the other path and build something smaller, cheaper, and entirely your own? And if you couldn't afford either today, that's okay. Because you don't need millions to study $1 million business. You just need to understand the numbers. Real filings, real decisions. The verdict is yours.